On this episode of the DTVC podcast, we've got actors Nicolette, McKeown, and Stephen Kerr from the new movie Death Among the Pines on. So we'll be talking about them in just a bit. So if you remember back in late November, we had Tom Joliffe on, who was a screenwriter for Death Among the Pines. We talked about the movie with him. And then probably a week or two later, I recorded with Nico and Stephen. And we were just waiting for the movie to go on Tubi. So the producer and director of the film, Nathan Shepka, he wanted us to wait till the movie's on Tubi. So it is on Tubi here in the States. So you can go check out Death Among the Pines on Tubi for free with just paying for commercials or just, paying through watching commercials, right? But you can check it out there. So this episode, I say like the first half hour or so, we do pre-spoiler stuff. So we're kind of just chatting about things, to do with the movie, also some general acting things as well. And then we go on the other side of the spoiler wall. It's really great stuff there because I think at that point, Nico and Stephen, they could just talk about anything about the movie they wanted to because they're kind of free at that point, So the way it's going to work is we're going to do that opening part. We'll do like the first half hour or so talking just about the movie in general, them as actors as general, and, the theater industry is general, or, the theater, like in theaters, like movie theaters and things like that. Then, catch a break, get an ad for one of my novels, and then, we'll kind of go full spoiler mode there in the next part. And that's where all the real great gems are. So stay tuned for that. Next week, Ty is on for his monthly spot as we look at Shrapnel, Jason Patric movie, and then Under Fire with Mason Gooding and Dylan Sprouse. So originally we were going to do a Patric double feature. We had another one picked out that's on Netflix. It's a David A.R. White movie, so it would have been kind of funny. The only thing is it's gated for people like myself who have the ad version. So total kind of fugazi bait and switch move that Netflix did with that. Like I don't remember seeing anywhere that said, if you do commercials, then if you do commercials, you don't get all the movies. Like I don't think there's any other version of the streamers that does that. You either do the ad version or you get ad free, but you get all the movies. You just have to pay for ads for some. But Netflix does that, so we ended up having to pick Undercover or Under Fire. But Under Fire was a good one, so so stay tuned for that. That'll be next week. Ty and I will be doing that one. And then from there, nothing imminent for DTVC Extra. The YouTube channel, I was planning to get a video out for that, or a new video this week, but I don't know if you could hear my cold is back. I don't know what happened, if I got a new cold or the old one just never quite got away, so we're going to see. But if I still sound rough, I'm probably not going to do it. I'll wait a little bit, but I don't know. We'll see what happens there. And then in terms of appearances on other podcasts, I was on the Lambcast episode 800 doing sports movie drafts. So I don't know if you had a chance, you can check that out, kind of see what movies I picked there for sports movies. Did have to get one in for the DTVC crowd, one for especially for you guys out there. So definitely check that out. And then Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm not sure if it was that last week or it's maybe coming this week. It's some point soon. I was on the episode, we talked about chapter 27. So it's like about a 2-minute part in the movie. It's the part where they're flooding this area. They're flooding the area so they can like float to the top and get away from the sharks. So I talk about that moment with them. I also talk about some direct-to-video movies and stuff like that. Really, really fun time. So definitely check that episode out as well. I think that's everything. Oh, I got to be talking about the site, right? So we just did Angels of the City this past week. That was our PM flick for the month. I think I'm going to do Falcon Rising. I think that's what it's called, right? It's the one with Michael Jai White. We did a podcast episode on it way back in the old iteration of the podcast, but I've never gotten around to covering it. So I think I'm going to do that one this weekend. So keep an eye out for that. I do have, MR9, Do or Die? That's a Michael Jai White movie that I've got in the can that Ty and I did on a podcast episode, but I don't know. I want to wait on that one a little bit. Maybe I'll do that one in a couple months or later this year, because it's not really a Michael Jai White movie. So I want to do a Michael Jai White movie, and Falcon Rising is definitely one that's focuses on him. So probably look for that one this weekend. And then obviously my books, my newest book, Mark and Sales, available on Kindle Unlimited, and Amazon. Go pick that up today. Features Mark, who is a person who sells cut rate health insurance to companies that either are looking to save some money or just don't know any better. He does a really great job doing it. He's got millions of dollars that he's made for his family, but his family doesn't see him much because he's out selling, this cut rate insurance all the time. He's out there doing the best job he can to sell this bad insurance. Also, he starts to realize the toll this bad insurance is taking on the employees, right? They're losing providers. They're not getting things covered. And so he starts to have a crisis of confidence or, conscience, like, do I want to keep selling this stuff? But as he started to get that, the company offers him the promotion he's always wanted. And so now it's like, do I take this promotion or do I start over doing something else? So that's Mark in Sales. You can check that one out. The link is in the podcast description. So definitely go get that. Also, I want to quickly say before we get into the actual episode here, I am on Substack, a direct video connoisseurs on Substack. So go check that out. The link is in the podcast description. If you don't want to use social media anymore, you're tired of social media, but you want to keep up with what we're doing between the podcasts, all the other things, podcasts, reviews, Letterboxd, YouTube, all of those things, you can subscribe on Substack. I post everything on there, so then you can get an email telling you what's new on the site. So if you're tired of social media, subscribe to our Substack. Everything's free. You can do that too. All right, we'll have John Cross from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures playing our theme song, and then when we come back, Nicolette McKeown and Stephen Kerr from the movie Death Among the Pines will be on. Hey everyone, welcome back to the DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I'm joined by two very special guests here. We've got Nicolette McKeown and Stephen Kerr from the new movie Death Among the Pines, which recently we had Tom Joliffe on to talk about that as well. But welcome both of you.
Sorry, I was just getting a tissue there.
No worries.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
Sorry about that.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
Yeah, thank you both for coming on. Yeah, I realized, for people that don't know, we were trying to do it on video to start with, and that would have been one of those things where if we'd had video, we would have seen, we would have known, like, okay, wait, that happens to me a lot too. Sometimes I'll be like drinking, and someone will ask me a question while I'm having a sip of water, and I was like, okay, yeah, sorry, I can't respond right away.
That's okay.
Well, I want to say quickly, congratulations to both of you on this movie. I really enjoyed Death Among the Pines. It was really great, and I thought you both did a great job in it.
Oh, thank you
Thank
very
you very much. Thank you.
It's always nice to when someone enjoys your work, never mind, actually watches it, because it's really hard to get your stuff out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I concur.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. I know obviously, I've done a couple movies that Nathan Shepka and Tom Joliffe have done before. And I know, Stephen, you worked on one. You worked on Lock and Load with Nathan before. But
that's right.
Yeah, one of the things, another indie director from Australia, Nathan Hill, told me that one of the things that he'll sell to actors in his movies is, I actually get the movie out there. The movie actually makes it, and people can watch it. Is that kind of one of the things too? Like obviously with Nathan, he's got a track record of having movies out that you can say like, okay, if I'm in this movie, it will at least make it, to different streamers and platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That's good. That's why I've known Nathan for what? Almost like maybe 7 or 8 years now. So as soon as I got the part, I was kind of psyched because I knew that it would get out there. So that's obviously quite important.
Yeah, how about you, Nico? Same thing kind of deal. That like, yeah, it's like because you mentioned that you're like, oh, it's good for my stuff to even get out there.
Nathan has a really great track record of actually getting stuff out there into festivals and getting it distributed throughout the world, really. So that was definitely something that appealed to me, working with him, knowing that it would actually get seen and, to a wider audience, not just, the people in the UK.
Yeah, and I think for me, this is something maybe we may touch on later, is that, as an American, we don't always get, when it comes to things made in Scotland or things that take place in Scotland, it's always like the fish out of water American who's like, sort of going through there. And I think to be able to see movies that I think like this one that we're talking about here, Death Among the Pines, which is just, a nice thriller that just kind of does what you need a thriller to do. Whether it's made in Scotland or Australia, wherever it's made, I think for us to be able to get to see that, I think is always a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure when your work makes it halfway across the world.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe we'll start. I mean, beyond obviously the fact that the movie actually is going to get made, and it's going to be released. Like, maybe we'll start with you, Nico. Like, what brought you to this? Like, what did you find interesting in this role in this film that made you want to do it?
Well, firstly, I fell in love with the script. I got really excited while reading it, and it's always a good sign whenever I can envision every scene pretty clearly. I love the thriller genre, and I love the idea that it was quite a performance-focused piece with quite a small cast. For Angela, in particular, I love playing multifaceted characters that have like a lot more on than what meets the eye, especially when that someone is trying to keep something hidden under a lot of pressure and like high stakes scenarios.
Yeah, which I think one of the things about that part that you did with Angela was that, especially like the scenes with Nathan, but I think also too the scenes that come later with Stephen's character as well with Donnie, is it's like so much of it is based on just the interactions, and maybe you get these establishing shots here or there, but for the most part, it's really like hinging on those interactions that you're having with the other actors.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of like subtlety in there and opportunity for like nuance, which we can kind of get into the post spoiler wall. I'm very much aware that I don't want to give too much away here.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah, for sure, yeah. And Steve, we were just asking Nico, like, what was it about the movie that did, or the role and the movie that interested her? Same thing for you, Steve. What interested you in this, in wanting to take this on?
Well, it was interesting when I did my audition for it. The self-tape, I played Donnie, completely different, obviously, because I didn't know what the guys were after. And then once I got the role and then I got the script, I was like, oh, okay, he's a little bit different to what I first imagined him to be. But that happens all the time, realistically, with when you're self-taping and things. So for me, it was a chance to really to play a police officer. It's like, it's sort of, I think I could check that. I can kind of tick it off my list, because I think playing a police officer, especially one in the sort of, I guess it's the 70s, is a lot different from how you would do it today, just with, change of language, etc. And then when it was after seeing the work he done on Babe in the Basket as well, this script just seemed like I don't know, a good challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I mean, there's definitely some stuff like that when we get to the other side of the spoiler wall. I don't want to ask both of you about some of those challenges that came into it. But I mean, maybe go back to you, Stephen. Like, what were some of the challenges that you saw in kind of in doing the role?
One of the things was actually the accent. For me, it's funny because I've recently played parts that are a lot older, and I've found them to be slightly easier, because with this is only going back 40, 50 years ago, and my accent, I mean, I am enunciating my words right now because I'm obviously speaking to yourself. So my Glaswegian accent is quite strong. So trying to find Donnie's voice was particularly challenging, I would say, and sort of playing that sort of bloodlines sort of character without trying to give too much away. That is the challenge with this film.
Yeah, that was something that Tom mentioned about that, like the accent part of it. That not wanting to have the accent be too strong. It's funny because living here in Philadelphia, I originally grew up in Maine, where it's one accent, and then moved down here to Philadelphia, which is a different one. And I taught English as a second language for a long time, so I was trying to have as region-free of an American accent as absolutely possible. And then like both accents kind of slip out. Like I can't do a Philadelphia accent, but sometimes it just comes out, without me realizing it. So yeah, was that kind of a similar thing for you, Nico, having to kind of figure out with the accent or how you wanted the character to speak?
Yeah, well, I'm always very much aware if something is sort of going out there to the world. I want people to be able to understand me. So I think that as Scottish people, we are all sort of already aware of wanting people to be able to understand us without having to, use subtitles. The way she speaks isn't too different from the way that I normally speak, but as I say, you're just hyper aware of your enunciation and your pronunciation of things.
Yeah, I guess it's something, I guess, as Americans, we would never really even think about that, right, that, if we're getting something from Scotland, that the actors are trying to sort of temper their accents. It's funny, when, thinking about that, I saw Karen Gillan was talking about the new Highlander movie that she was in, and she was saying how she didn't need the accent coach for that because, it's supposed to take place in Scotland. But I don't remember any of the characters other than Sean Connery, who wasn't playing somebody from Scotland. Like, nobody else in that movie was actually Scottish, even though it took place in Scotland.
Yeah, that can be quite frustrating at times when you get projects that are being filmed here and they don't always, resource the talent that they have already existing here. It's something that I definitely want to see more of. I mean, I don't have anything against people playing Scottish characters, but I just, out of respect for filming in our country and, using our crew, I think that it would be a very welcome addition to highlight the talent that we already have here.
Yeah, because it's such a difficult, especially Glaswegian, it's such a difficult accent. If someone who isn't from here is going to try and learn or imitate, it's so difficult, and I think that's because, again, that's another thing going back to with it being one of Nate's films, is we knew it was going to get released, more likely to be released in the States, so you've always got that kind of in the back of your head. I mean, I worked in the States for years, and people who I still speak to today still struggle with my accent. So it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, you're always trying to be as clear as possible so that no matter where anyone's from, they can understand you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because we have a guest on every once in a while, or I shouldn't say every once in a while, usually every other month. His name's Scott Murphy. He does a podcast called All 90s Action all the time, but he's originally from Scotland and lives in New Zealand now. And so we think our thing is we're going through a bunch of Steven Seagal direct-to-video movies. So they're, but one thing that's great about having him on is that a lot of actors from the UK would just shoot down to Bulgaria and film those movies for 2 weeks. I know Imelda Staunton was in one, so he'll tell me all of the shows that they were on in there. But I've never thought about it, but he's originally from Edinburgh, so I don't know if maybe that accent, maybe it's not.
Yeah, it's quite a different accent. Yeah, I know that Stephen will agree with that as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, there's so many different accents from different regions in Scotland. There's not just one general accent, but I think probably the one that most people think of when they think of Scotland is probably either Glaswegian or someone living up in the Highlands,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree.
But it's also strange because I don't particularly think of myself having a strong accent until I go to a different country, or I go down to England, and then there's always the thing of people getting us mixed up with with Irish, which I'm not offended by. I've got Irish heritage and I'm very proud of that, but yeah, it can be quite frustrating when someone watches your movies and they leave a review or something that's like, oh, it was all Irish actors, when in fact we were all Scottish.
That I totally understand. I was on the subway here in Philadelphia. So obviously here in Philadelphia, there's a lot of most Northeast cities in the United States. There are a lot of people of Irish descent. And so of course, St. Patrick's Day is a big holiday, but also for kids going to college, right? That's an excuse to really get drunk on a weekend. And I remember being on the subway, and there were a bunch of college kids all dressed up in green to go drink on St. Patrick's Day weekend, and they were singing the Proclaimers 500 miles, and that's that's not an Irish song.
It's a bit of a classic over here.
Yes. Well, because I remember the song came out, and they were interviewing. Was it Twins, who were the lead singer in the group, and they were interviewing them, and so it's okay, well, obviously I know that they're Scottish because I was listening to them in the interview and everything. But for these kids, I guess the song would have probably come out before they were born, so they have no idea.
No, it's one of the songs that is always played whenever we have sort of family get-togethers and big parties, whenever there's a wedding, or whenever it's someone's birthday party, everyone gets up on the dance floor for proclaimers.
Yeah.
That's all. I had no idea. Yeah, it's a very it's still a very popular one here in the U.S. It gets like commercials use it all the time. Yeah, it comes up a lot. I wondered because it's 500 miles. I wasn't sure. Like, I guess, you know, in America we think that everybody uses the metric system, so we think I don't know what that would be in kilometers, 860 kilometers, something like that. I don't know what that. But
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't sound as good, right, when you do it that way.
No, it doesn't have quite the same ring to it, does it?
Exactly. Well, one of the questions I was curious about was because one of the things that Tom brought up that I didn't expect, and maybe this might be something that ends up being better on the other side of the spoiler wall, but Tom mentioned that he was, you know, talking with Nathan, who was editing the film and sort of choosing what takes to use. And I don't know if either of you were surprised by some of the takes that did end up in the final cut when you were sort of shooting the scenes.
Stephen?
Nico?
Maybe not.
I was trying to be polite.
I was trying to think of these. Was there not? Again, this is the kind of getting into the spoiler wall.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe. Yeah, I thought about this after that. Maybe it was a spoiler wall question. I don't know.
We could maybe revisit it, but
Yeah.
in general, I think that for me, not particularly. It's always really strange watching yourself back in any movie, and I think that that's the case for most actors. I don't particularly like it, but I also think it's important from a technical, like, learning point of view. At least for me, as I like to analyze my performance to see what I did that I liked, and maybe something that I did that I would like to use again in the future, and if there's anything that I would do differently. So it's interesting because, you know, I don't know how many actors that you interview, Matt, who don't watch their work back.
No, that's a good question, because actually, you technically, I was going to say you guys are the first actors I've interviewed, but actually, you know, Nathan, you know, I talked, you know, obviously he's come on before, and then another Nathan who lives in Australia, Nathan Hill, but he's also a director as well. So it's kind of like this combination of directing and acting. So they go through the, you know, the craft of acting, but because they're the directors and editors as well, they're like, you know, have to watch themselves back. So they don't have any choice in their case, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's quite a common thing. I think it's a bit of a shame because there's some really excellent actors out there that, you know, there's that actor from Star Wars, oh God, Adam Driver.
Oh, yes.
And he's excellent. It's just such a shame that, you know, there's so many people out there that don't get to fully appreciate, you know, their on-screen presence, and they'll probably never know how much of a charismatic on-screen presence they have because they'll never watch themselves back.
That is interesting. That I mean, that's maybe they're afraid that by watching it, they'll get too in their head and too analytical about it, and then that may affect them going forward. But that is, I'm amazed that Adam Driver doesn't watch himself.
Yeah.
But I found recently that Freddie Prinze Jr. didn't watch the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. He didn't watch it until about a year ago, because he's got a horror podcast, and I've got a horror podcast as well. So he reviewed it on his podcast, but basically he watched it and he was like, I'm actually quite surprised. This is actually better than I thought.
Oh,
The reviews slated it.
yeah.
Which is, yeah. So that was his first time watching it, and that film was what, I get 25 years ago that was made.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's something, you know, I think that I learned from doing these reviews. Like when I started doing this site, it was like in the late 2000s. I was in my late 20s, and I wanted to be like kind of as smart, snarky, and funny as possible, you know, talking about the movies. But then you find out that, you know, the people that make the movies actually read the reviews. You know, they find these things and read them. And I remember there was this director, I think I'd mentioned it actually on the podcast that Tom was on.
I listened to that one, yeah.
Yes, director Albert Pion, where I was like, you know, I reviewed one of his movies. He didn't say anything, but then he asked me about some other ones. And then later on, he's like, can you give that movie another chance? And I was like, sure. And I read my review and I was like, oh, you know, someone who directs car commercials could do a better job than him. And I was like, boy, you know, he could have just been like, okay, this kid's just in his parents' basement or whatever, you know, writing reviews and whatever. He doesn't know anything. And he could have maybe even, you know, said something back to me or whatever. But he was like, no, I'm just going to, you know, not worry about it, not think about it, and come back to him. And, you know, then he ends up with a fan. But it was something that I learned where I was like, okay, you know, everybody who's making these movies, they're sometimes with the bigger ones, yes. If I'm John Travolta in a direct-to-video movie, he's probably not reading my review. He I can't imagine. But for the most part, people do read them, and it's like, okay, well, they put a lot of work into this. I should, give it that due. But you forget that like even big stars, like I know it's like Kumail Nanjiani, who did the Eternals movie. That was like kind of the first Marvel movie that really got panned, and he talked about having to go to therapy for the bad reviews of it. And it's like, yeah, because people on the internet just kind of say whatever they want to say about movies now.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's crazy the amount of people, not just for my stuff, but in general, you'll see like films I've really loved on IMDb, and you get people that feel the need to mention that they didn't even finish the movie, but they're still taking time to write, a derogatory comment towards the work, and it's heartbreaking. I think we're also fighting against people's attention spans these days as well, aren't we?
Yeah, I heard this recently about the someone, was it the girl who was in The Witcher? Said that apparently maybe studio execs or executives or writers, someone's told her recently that they are having to make certain points in a film because of people's attention spans, because of their phones. They're having to make films sort of follow a certain criteria that makes the viewer more engaged, but it takes away from what they actually want to do.
Wow. That's kind of sad that we've kind of got to this point in society where people just can't put their phone down for 5 minutes.
I know.
And that was actually something that Matt, you and Tom were talking about in your last podcast with them, actually.
Yeah, no, exactly. And one of the things I didn't mention, I don't think, when Tom and I were talking about this was that I had a previous guest on the pod. His name's Mitch. He has a site called The Video Vacuum, and he was talking about, I think it was the Fountain of Youth movie that Apple Plus had with who was in it? Tom Krasinski, I think, or I can't remember whoever was in the movie. John Krasinski, not Tom. John Krasinski.
Oh yeah, John.
Right.
A Quiet Place. Yeah.
Yeah, but apparently Apple wanted the movie to be made in such a way that the plot kept getting rehashed every so often to fill people in who are looking at their phones. And I think of that like in America here, like for example, you have a radio show that might go on for 4 hours, and the idea is that people are in their cars listening to the radio show. So the VJ or DJs or whatever, they or the hosts will recap things at the top of the hour to kind of get new listeners, but they're not expecting everybody to listen for 4 hours. And it's weird that a movie that you should be, you're expected to watch a movie for whatever the amount of time is, that they're using the same approach as somebody who's like, getting in their car and listening for the middle 2 hours of a movie or something like that.
That is wild, especially because, I mean, if you're watching a film from at home, then you have that, what's that called again? A pause button. So you have a pause button, or you also have a rewind button. So it's like you could even just go, okay, I've looked at my phone.
Yeah.
I've missed the last 10 minutes. I'll go back. But if what Matt's saying is like, they're having to rehash the plot, it's almost like they think that people won't do that. They'll just keep going. They'll just be in the sort of not knowing what's happening instead of just rewinding. Yeah, I mean, this says a lot about where we are as a society.
It also shows that we're sort of expecting the worst from people, that they're not going to pay attention.
Well, and the other thing that, when we were talking about this in that previous podcast episode about, the Apple, with Apple doing this, it also kind of brings us this whole other point about these corporations getting into making movies now, because, Apple's goal isn't so much to sell a movie, but it is to get you to use your phone and engage with all these other things on the phone, to kind of keep you interested in the phone. And so they don't want to discourage you. They don't want you to put your phone down while you're watching an Apple movie, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, well, that adds a whole other layer to it, doesn't it? That it's in their best interest to keep you on your phone. That's, it's wild.
Yeah, I heard that with Amazon. It's like, because the director Jay Horton, who I think Nathan and Tom gave thanks to in the credits of this, but he talked about when you have your movies on Prime, you get more money if people click to buy things while watching your movie.
Actually, that's crazy.
Yeah,
wow.
Right. And so it's like, I don't know what that means. It's like for example, like this movie here, it's it has almost like a timeless quality to it with, you know, the sets and everything. And so, I mean, can you imagine if like with Nathan and Tom trying to sell this movie on Prime, for example, if they were like, well, the kind of the rustic radio that's kind of standing there that kind of plays a good part in the film. Well, we need to be a certain radio that people can click on and buy, you know? And on the one hand, maybe you get more money to make the movie because you get this product placement, or, you know, Prime, you know, Amazon wants in there. But on the other hand, it's like, it takes away from what that radio meant in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I understand the money-making side of things when it comes to the industry. But I do think that people get too focused on numbers and profits rather than staying true to a film's vision. And I think it's so easy. It's so easy for that vision to be affected by, you know, the allure of making extra money from selling it to, you know, plans like that.
Yeah, it's almost like just making a film isn't enough anymore. It's like
It's like you need the merchandise, you need the it's like when you look at Marvel. I mean, I love switching off with Marvel films and superhero films, don't get me wrong, but it's always as if like it's made knowing, and Disney movies as well, it's made knowing with the intention of how much merchandise can we get out of this.
Right, well, because like Captain America has a new outfit for every movie because they want to sell. It's kind of like with football, right? In world football, where every team has a new jersey every year, right? So people will go buy the new jersey.
Yeah. I mean, it's great from a fan point of view, and it's great to see it from like your character in different ways and new suits and what have you. But yeah, it's I'm just going on a bit of a tangent here.
Yeah, but it could be as well, because I guess they know that you know, cinemas aren't as full as they used to be. Obviously, we've just had Cineworld in Glasgow City Centre closed down after I don't know how many years being there. I mean, I still try and go to the cinema once a week, maybe once every second week, depending on what I've got going on. But it's we've almost perfected indoors so much that everything outside of that is like just sort of falling to bits. That goes with like nightlife, pubs, bars, cinemas. It's just like we've got everything now at the tip of our fingers, and we can do whatever. And it's just like we've perfected indoors to the point where it's detrimental to everything else.
It's also a lot of competition with, you know, cinemas versus indoors, because I know that whenever I go to the cinema, I love the whole experience, but I know that if there's someone sitting on their phone or talking through it, like that's really going to affect, you know, my overall enjoyment of sitting down and watching a film.
Yeah,
totally. So it is very tempting just to say to myself, you know, I'm just going to wait until it comes out in streaming, and then, you know, I can watch it in the comfort of my own home. I can pause whenever I want. You know, I'm not going to be interrupted by strangers that just, there's no sort of what's the word?
Distraction sort of thing.
Yeah, there's no sort of etiquette. There's no sort of cinema etiquette anymore. It's really changed.
Yeah, it has changed, definitely. And a lot of cinemas now are having to you know, do films that are older, you know, throwback sort of nostalgia films, big blockbusters. You know, I've seen loads recently. I've seen Jaws, I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that brings in a bigger pool of audience. So it's kind of like, it's almost like, well, what is it saying about films that are making their way to the cinemas these days, where there's not that pool anymore? They're having to, you know, show these old classics and to kind of get a full house. So it's an interesting problem.
No, I mean, it's a great point, because I think, you know, like a movie like this one, like Death Among the Pines, you know, probably like in America in the 90s, 2000s, it probably would have been on cable or TV, you know, movie that maybe would have had a small indie release. But by the same token, you know, there was a time where you would have a lot of, you know, a ton of different movies in the theater, and there's a lot of choice. But I think now there's this thing of like, well, if you're going to the movie, it has to be an event, because you're going to spend all this money on tickets and popcorns, and, you know, and so now it's got to be over 2 hours, because I don't feel like I got my money's worth if it's only an hour and a half. And I think that's kind of too bad, because I remember there used to be a time where it was like, you just would, somebody's working until a certain time and I've got 2 hours to kill. Why don't I just watch a movie? Just go to the cinema and see a movie. And you really can't do that anymore.
No, it's so expensive. Yeah, it's so expensive and not as accessible as it used to be, which is quite sad. But in that respect, I think the replacement for movies being accessible is now our modern access to streaming sites and being able to download films at the click of a button.
Well, and I think with a movie like this, one of the benefits, I think one of the things that would make people more likely to watch this than say go to the cinema is that, if you get this on a streamer, like right now, I think it's like $2.99 on Amazon, but I think also when this episode releases, it might be closer to when it's on Tubi, which would mean it would be free. But then it's like, by the time you pay for like pizza delivery or something like that, and you get beer or whatever to go with it, you're actually still ahead of what you'd be paying for going to the theater, and you don't have to worry about leaving your house. You don't have to worry about anybody being annoying. You can pause it when you need to pause it, all of those kinds of things. And so, there is an advantage now, I think, to some of the movies on streaming.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take your pets to the cinema.
Well, me and Gary, obviously, Nicolette knows Gary. He's my co-host on the podcast. We do a secret cinema every month, so you don't know what the film's going to be. You turn up, we watch the film, and then we open up the podcast and we do the podcast with the audience. But just last week we did our first secret cinema dog friendly, so you could bring your dog along.
Oh, what about bunnies though? You're discriminating against rabbits.
I never thought about that, actually. I should have actually thought about that.
I'm just sad because I've got a house bunny, and
yeah.
I don't even think she'd even want to be there, but I just like the idea of having all these rabbits in a cinema.
Yeah, that would be right. I remember we had growing up. My parents got 2 bunnies for us, and I think they thought they were both males, and then discovered that the female was pregnant, had a whole bunch of small little ones. But yeah, one was, I think the male was white and the female was black, and then their bunnies were black, white, and gray. It was quite a trip. Yeah, so I can imagine, having them all kind of hanging out in the. My dad knew a farm or something that was able to take them. Yeah, but I was
how many dogs turned up, Stephen?
It was only. Do you know what? It was a change of venue. It was a Thursday night, so I had a change of date as well. Celtic were playing in Europe, so tickets weren't great. I think we had 3.
Aww.
3 dogs.
What were their names? Can you remember their names?
Oh no, one was Gary's dog, so that's Pippa.
Oh. I love how we just went on a total tangent.
Way off topic, yeah.
But animals, I just love animals, especially my house bunny, Bunnelby. So I'm going to give her a wee shout out.
Perfect. It's funny, in America here, they do, for sporting events, they do bring your dog.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there's a minor league team here in New Jersey, in Trenton. They have a dog that's the bat boy. So I don't know if you know with baseball, when the players, after they swing the bat, if they hit it and they run, there's usually like a young man on either side of the team that goes and grabs the bat for him. They call him the bat boy. But they trained this golden retriever to do it. And his name was Rookie.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I remember one of the times he couldn't find the bat. And the umpire, I don't know why the umpire couldn't just be like, there's the bat, and point the bat out to the dog. And the dog's looking at him can you tell me where the bat is? And he was just dusting the thing off. But it was the greatest thing ever. If you ever come to America, minor league, so it's baseball in America, the way it works is that unlike in Europe where the teams get promoted and relegated, in America, the teams all stay in the same bracket or the same tier that they're in, and the players get promoted to the different leagues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so there's one here in Trenton, New Jersey. It's a minor league team that they have the dog. And so you go on certain nights and you can see the dog play, or the dog do that. And then also there's another team near here, because Philadelphia has the big team. They have the Phillies. So that's that's close to me here. But yeah, they always do these little gimmicks to get people to come see the minor league teams.
Oh,
that's cool.
Any excuse to get animals involved for me.
Aye.
Exactly. Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I was trying to think, on this side of the spoiler wall, if we had anything else, or if we maybe wanted to sort of take a break here and then start talking about some of the spoiler things.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, all sounds great. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, then what we'll do is we'll take a break here, and then when we come back, we'll kind of get into on some spoilers. So anybody listening right now, if you have not seen Death Among the Pines, stop the podcast now. Go fire it up either on Amazon or if it's on Tubi at this point, go watch it and then come back and listen to this part of the podcast.
Please.
All right, we'll be right back.
See you in a sec.
My newest book, Mark in Sales, is available now. It follows Mark, who, over the last 10 years, has turned himself into the best possible salesperson he can be. And in that time, he's made his family rich selling cut-rate health insurance to companies that are either looking to save a few bucks or don't know any better. The problem is, he's missed out on the lives of his wife and kids, and the employees of those companies he's sold insurance to now have to deal with higher medical bills and the loss of previously covered providers. As Mark comes to understand the reality of the product he's selling and the toll his long hours at work have taken on his relationship with his family, his company gives him the promotion he's always wanted. Can he now throw away everything he's worked so hard for to make a career change? Mark in Sales takes place in the same world as Chad in Accounting and explores what it means to be an adult in modern society, from family and career obligations to making sense of a changing world as time passes more quickly. You can get an Amazon and Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and in paperback. The link is in the podcast description.
All right, welcome back to the DTVC podcast. And we're going to start getting on some of the spoiler questions here. And I guess my first one is for you, Nico, about your character, because one of the things that I think you may have heard when I talked about this with Tom, the idea that Angela would answer the door and let Nathan's character in, to me, I was like, wow, why would somebody do that? And of course, you have to kind of trust that the answer is there, right? That it's actually a very believable answer when it comes at the end. But did you worry maybe the audiences wouldn't trust that?
Well, I know that originally the idea for what time this film was set was going to be in the 1970s, but the time was still quite ambiguous. But with going into the sort of filming process and the character development, having that in my head that it was the 1970s, I believe that then Nathan wanted to lean closer to the sort of late 80s, early 90s, but it's not specified. But anyway, years ago, living in the countryside, people were generally a lot more inviting and less suspicious of people. And I know that that's sort of hard to imagine now, but even attitudes towards not locking your doors were totally different. So there wasn't the same amount of stranger danger. People weren't on high alert quite the same whenever, a stranger went to their door. So I didn't think it was too sort of beyond belief that she would let someone into her house because, she didn't feel necessarily threatened. She was just a bit taken aback more than anything that her routine had sort of been interrupted. But what I would say is that she didn't want to seem too keen because she's still obviously aware. She doesn't want to give anything away, but she wants to appear as innocent and sort of vulnerable as possible. So that slight hesitation that you see, it's more of a sort of act, I would say.
Right, because she's seeing him. What we find out at the end of the movie is that she sees him as an opportunity, right, for her to kind of
yeah. And then, of course, when she actually sees him and gets a good look at him, she's like, that is a big motivation for her to actually invite him in, because she's like, oh, who's this good-looking stranger that's stumbled across my web? Because she has like a Black Widow character. So the way that I seen sort of Nathan's character Kevin was, like a victim that's just sort of fallen as one of my prey, I guess.
Well, because what's funny about it is that he, even though it's like he's got like this big bump on his head and he's got scratches on his knuckles and everything, and he looks like he's in kind of rough shape, he kind of always thinks that he's maybe not putting one over on your character, but he definitely doesn't think that he's in any kind of lack of control, right? He thinks like,
Yeah.
I can tell her what I need to tell her, okay, things are happening there. I mean, there's a point obviously towards the end of the movie where he figures it out and he realizes like, oh, okay, this is what happened here. But he never quite catches on. I think as the audience, we figure it out much more before him, I think.
Yeah. And she quite, I get the impression that she quite likes, Angela quite likes lulling people into a false sense of security as well. Just letting people think what they want to think.
What's interesting, I think, Stephen, with your character is, and the thing that kind of struck me was that, the way Tom wrote it, it starts off with Nico's character and, with Angela. And then we find out later his name's Kevin, but, Nathan's character. And it's really kind of a two-hander, which, those two characters are kind of, there's some tension there. And then it felt like as the tension was going and we're really starting to kind of get somewhere with their characters, as opposed to a point where it's like, okay, the two characters thing has run its course. We need a third character. It feels like Tom introduces your character at a point where you're more of a party crasher than you are like the kind of the needed energy to kind of keep the thing going.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, Donnie kind of obviously he goes in there and he's a bit, he's kind of sensing maybe that something is off, but I think it's the timing of it is really, really good. So just bringing in that third character, the audience are kind of like, all right, so where's it going to go now? How's this going to work out? And you've almost got this sort of like a three-way kind of going on with it. And I think, yeah, he does kind of feel like he has interrupted something. He's crashed this party. But he's not a good guy. He's got his own flaws, and kind of there are things that he could have done in that situation, maybe to help his cause a little bit. But with his own sort of maybe ignorance, he's obviously it's not turned out too well for him.
Yeah, because he always kind of sees like he might be saving Nico from this situation, but at the same time, he kind of wants to hook up with, sorry, not Nico, Angela, but he also wants to hook up with Angela, I think, to some extent. And so it's sort of like, yeah, he's sort of playing these two ends here. And to your point, like as the police officer, the smart thing would have been like, once he knew he was in a bad situation, is to say, okay, I'm going to go call back up and say, I think we've got our man. Come on, bring everybody in. And instead, he's like, he wants to show how smart he is that he caught the not so clever ruse that Nathan's character does, because it's very obvious what he's doing. So it's like anybody would have caught, so he catches it, and it ends up kind of being his undoing a bit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even at the very, very start, when Donnie walks into the house, Angela goes in, and I think Donnie's taking off his hat and jacket, and he sort of gives Kevin that look as if, oh, look at her, she's no bad. And he has, at this point, he has no idea. Well, I don't know if Angela says it's my husband before that, but he just looks at this woman as if she's a piece of meat right in front of what is made out to be her partner. He doesn't care. Total opportunist.
Yeah, and then I think to with your character, with Angela, like later when it kind of goes bad for him, he gets kind of hit with the glass, and then he ends up kind of tied up in the shed there. And Nico shows up, or sorry, I keep saying Angela shows up, and again, Steven's character still thinks he can control her, and I think this is where it's interesting, Nico, with your character with Angela, where she plays a part. And we don't know she's playing a part. I think we've kind of maybe figured it a little bit, but there's still some ambiguity there where we don't know necessarily that she's playing a part to Steven's character. She kind of makes it seem like she doesn't know what's happening, even though she does.
Yeah, that's what I quite liked about the film is you sort of think you have it figured out, but then later on, with the flashbacks, you realise that there's actually it's a different direction, and there's different motivations there to what you might have originally thought.
Yeah, one thing that's maybe interesting about your character is that you A lot of times in a movie like this, the standard paradigm is your character lets this guy into his house. It's not good. Then the police officer shows up, or whoever it is, this other person, he's not good either. And she has to overcome both of these characters. And there's sort of like this development arc that, sort of throughout the night, she becomes stronger or whatever it is. But in this case, it's not that at all. Instead, we're kind of revealed who your character is as the movie goes on, either through flashbacks or just, her own way. And so I was wondering about that, like when it comes to doing scenes out of order, if there was a challenge of that, to be like, how much of this person has been revealed at this point in the movie?
Yeah, I mean, most films you will shoot scenes out of order. So it's a good idea to take notes of what is revealed to each character in the scene at that time and any key points. Like my script always had a load of notes and key points like that, but it was especially important to remember key things like, I don't know if you noticed part of this costume. I mean, you would certainly notice because Stephen sort of draws attention to it later in the script, well, in the film. But how many rings I had on my necklace. Because if you pay attention, like at one point I'm not wearing my husband's ring at that point in the flashback. So it's very obvious that, I've been gradually adding to this. But yeah, it's just like little bits of costume and pieces like that that's quite essential.
But my favorite line, I think, in the movie is early on when Nathan's character is you just come in from the rain, make him something to eat, give him some whiskey or whatever, and then he needs to get changed, and he's like, well, how do I know I'm your husband's size? And Angela says, well, I've got a few different sizes there.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I thought that was great writing from Tom's part because it's ambiguous enough, but it makes you sort of wonder why. Is this just a sort of throwaway comment, or is this something that there's a bit more to it? And I quite like that because it's the sort of film that I think if you watch it more than once, if you go back and watch it again, then you'll notice there's little sort of hints. There's little sort of you actually used a great word in the podcast with Tom.
Oh, breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs,
yeah.
Yes. There's little sort of breadcrumbs along the way that upon second viewing you'll be like, oh, so that was actually seems quite obvious now watching it back, but it was subtle enough at the time.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things, talking about that, because like Stephen's character, on some levels, Donnie is almost like, on some levels, he's like the surrogate for us, where like he's sort of witnessing these things happen as well between Nathan and Nathan's character and Angela. But at the other time, because he's down in the bar and he can't actually see what's happening, he's sort of getting it from this audible sense. And I thought, like, in particular, like when you talked about Donnie being someone who's sort of an opportunist, I think with the love scene where he's only hearing the love scene and he's not actually seeing what happens in it, he might think like, oh, well, Angela will hook up with anybody. So if I can just maybe, convince her. Whereas for us, we saw how that went, it was very different from that watching it. And so I thought that was a really interesting dynamic.
I also thought that Angela that was probably the reason why she was so loud during that lovemaking session was, I think she would have got off Donnie hearing that.
Donnie might have got off hearing it as well. It's interesting why we didn't. Yeah, I guess we never shot anything of Donnie being down there and hearing it, did we? We didn't.
No,
that was never done.
But that would have certainly added like another element to it. would have been interesting to sort of.
He's really trying to get out his chair at this point.
Now, one of the things was that you and Nathan, Stephen, you and Nathan have like a really you have a few different fight scenes in the movie, and I know Tom was saying that initially they thought they were going to kind of do this on like a lower budget and kind of a lower scale. Did you know going in that the fight scenes were going to be at that same level, or did you kind of see them in the script and think, okay, maybe he punches me and I punch him or something like that?
To be honest, I think I had a good idea. Obviously, working with Nate on Lock and Load, so I kind of had a good idea that it would be quite there'd be a lot to it. We went and done a rehearsal together, maybe I don't know how many weeks before filming, and we just went, booked a room for a couple of hours and just sort of come up with the sort of the fight stuff. But no, it's really cool to do as well, and it's because with that you're just constantly learning. There's just so much that you can do, and especially with because I know when we have the fight in the sort of barn, there's so much you can use in there. So it's a lot of fun to actually just come up with all this different stuff. So yeah, did I know it was going to be as intense? I don't recall. But again, that's another reason why I wanted to do it as well, because I knew I'd get that opportunity.
Yeah, no, it came off really good. I mean, I liked it. And again, it had that dynamic where, almost like, Donnie and Kevin, Nathan's character, are fighting over, they're both kind of trying to defeat each other, but also that they're fighting over Angela in a way. And, and not realizing who Angela is at that point, right? That she's sort of that, whoever wins that fight's not necessarily going to be winning a good scenario necessarily.
Yeah, whoever wins gets the Black Widow. The praying man that bites the head off the mate. Great.
Like a praying mantis.
I mean, that's a big metaphor for I guess maybe men when it comes to sort of sexuality and all that kind of stuff. Fighting over a woman, it's like sometimes no one wins in that fight.
Yeah. There's no winners here.
Right. Because one of the things was that Tom mentioned that the original title was going to be Death Among the Barley.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, but with all that foreshadowing about the barley, where all the mentions of the barley, where she mentions having it and all that, to me, in my head, that would have given it away too much, because it would have felt like the Black Widow's web in a way that, I think Death Among the Pines kept it ambiguous enough that you don't see it really. Once you start to get those flashbacks going, you really start to see wow, this is going in a completely different direction than I thought it was.
Yeah, what was it? Can you remember the reason for the change? There was something to do with the location.
Yeah, the time of the filming, with the barley, the crops, they're only there for so long at certain periods throughout the year, and it just didn't align with when we were planning to film. And that was such an integral part of the story. So yeah, we had to sort of switch that up. But Nathan and Tom still wanted to honour the barley aspect of it. So that's why there's quite a few references still in the script.
Yeah, because we started at, can you remember what, we started at maybe August, September, and then we finished at, March or something the next year? Was that?
Yeah, March this year.
This year, yeah.
We started filming last year. September, that's when we did sort of outdoor stuff. So yeah, it was very sort of out of sequence, going back to sort of having to keep in mind what's been revealed so far. Because I think one of the first scenes that I shot was killing you, Stephen.
You know what? I think you're right. Actually, I think that is something that we filmed it out of sort of sync as you do, but you sort of group together the outdoor stuff / action sort of sequences, and it's weird. I don't know about you, Nico, but I prefer to do the sort of the sort of meat on the bones first, like the actual dialogue, setups, all that kind of stuff, because I think getting into a fight scene and the character's not nailed down yet, I think the fight stuff is a sort of mirror reflection of the actual character themselves. How do you feel about doing that? Would you prefer to do what we did, or would you prefer to have shot them after?
I suppose probably the way that it happened, because I didn't do really any fight in this. But what I will say is, for intimate scenes, I think it's good to sort of leave that further along in the schedule, because then I feel you've got a bit of a better rapport with whoever that you're doing an intimate scene like that with. You're certainly a lot more comfortable and have had time to be comfortable with each other.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I don't know if I told you this. I mean, I arrived the day of the scene with the sort of lovemaking scene.
Yeah, I remember that.
Did I tell you? Did I tell you?
Because I think you tapped the door and you were like, "Is it all right to come in?" And me and Liz was like, "No."
Yeah, so for Matt and the listeners, I was scheduled that day a bit later on. So I kind of just came out of the house, and it was funny because like I opened the door, and it's funny because you would think that when you're hearing that kind of stuff, like just as a normal person, there would be a sort of a moment of like, what am I doing? But it was so strange. I just walked in, and I can't remember who was downstairs, and we were just sitting there in the living room, and then this was going on upstairs. It was just all obviously the noises, and we're just kind of like, okay, this is life.
It just becomes normal after you've done so many movies. It's just
it
like
becomes normal. Yeah, it becomes so normal.
And it's the least sexiest thing you'll ever do in your entire career is these sort of intimate scenes.
Yeah, I've not done it. I've not done anything like as much as like as you have in this. But yeah, I can only. I mean, do you want to talk about it more? I don't know.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, because one of the things about that scene is that it is very revelatory about Nico's character, but in a way that I think is interesting because Nathan's character, Kevin, there's almost a sense I think that he still feels like he got what he wanted, that he feels like I don't know if one is the right word, but he'd been lusting after Angela since he got in the house, and now he's having his moment with her. But like the way that Angela is completely in control of that entire moment, but yet there's this kind of this sense from Nathan's character of like, I'm just going to do anything that she asks me. Maybe next time, baby, I'll but I'm still getting what I want here in a sense. It was really interesting because I think it kind of told us who Angela was without revealing too much to like Nate, but while Nathan's character still wouldn't figure it out, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like I think that so much can be said without having to say anything at all. We didn't want to spell everything out for the audience. Audiences are a lot more clever than people realise. And we also didn't want it to be a gratuitous scene. It had to serve the purpose of showing another side to her, while also having Kevin in this like vulnerable position for that added tension, that moment of will she kill him now or won't she kill him moment. Like it kind of was some inspiration there from Basic Instinct.
Yeah, Basic Instinct. Yeah, the old ice pick.
Yeah.
Well, in like so many like erotic thrillers in the 90s that would come after it might be more like, it wouldn't have been so intense, but it might be like a Joan Severance character. I think I kind of would see Joan Severance, her character would be similar to one that you played in this, Nico. And I feel like for her, it would be more of like this, like the sensuous thing that suddenly becomes a little bit rougher than people were expecting. And maybe there's a knife that just happens to be there and she's sort of toying around with it. And the music's, the violins are really starting to crack a bit or something. And then she tosses it aside, and whoever the guy is, whatever guy's playing that part sort of escapes that time. And he thinks, okay, everything's all right. This was done in a much more unique way. I mean, I guess, I don't know, was that in the script or was that something more like as you're kind of mapping out the scene that you say, okay, let's do these other parts?
Well, originally in the script, it was actually going to be a bit more explicit. And I think that you and Tom spoke about this a little bit in your podcast together. But there was like bodily fluids and the law, like a bit like Saltburn. But Nathan didn't want the film to have too much of a shock value and censorship issues and things. So a bunch of things did get changed. I think originally Angela was going to leave him in the room, then come back and this like reveal of full lingerie and all that get up. But we thought practically that just isn't her. And when you're hot and heavy and in the throes of passion, you're not just like, oh, wait a minute, will I go get changed? We wanted it to be a bit more organic and the heat of the moment. So it did change quite a bit over time, but the main message that we wanted to give was that she was the one in control. And I actually made suggestions with Nathan on the day, just things like throwing him around onto his back, showing that she's the dominant one and that she also has the physical strength to do that. So yeah, we needed this to be the moment that everyone realised that she's not as innocent or as weak as they might have previously thought.
Yeah, and I thought it was a perfect way to do it in a way that Nathan's character, it still feels like, Nathan's character, even though he's kind of going along with everything, he still feels like he's getting what he wanted, right? That like the moment he walks in the house. But then also Stephen's character, who's just hearing it from downstairs, doesn't know that it played out the way it did. And like you said, if Angela's making as much noise as possible so Donnie can hear it, that all the better. But I think that kind of gives Donnie this idea of like, oh, well, she's just sleeping with this guy that she just met tonight because he knows, this guy just escaped and he just showed up tonight. Well, then maybe, I've still got a chance with him, and before her husband comes back from fishing, because he doesn't know yet, right, what happened to the husband.
Yeah. That just kind of shows you how sort of pathetic Donnie really is. Donnie's just pathetic. But going back to the sort of love scene, I think it's like, I don't want to say brave, because I think just nowadays when it comes to sex scenes, like, some people will look at that, guys and girls, when they see a sex scene, they just think it's been thrown in there for I don't want to say shock value, so it's not that. That's too strong of a word, but I think it's almost like there's been a bit of a lull where it's like you can't show that kind of stuff now, especially with the sort of positions that the guys got into. But those positions especially were the ones that really nailed down, pardon the pun, and how much of the control that Angela has, and that's okay. That's okay to show that. It's okay to do it. Some people just think it's a bit maybe risque, but Matt, you actually said something there about erotic thrillers. I don't know if you know this, right?
Are you going to say that we're once in an erotic thriller, Stephen?
No. There's still hope, though. There's still hope. Fingers crossed, guys. If you hear anything, anyone looking, let me know. I am available.
Put out to the universe.
Put out to the universe. Nico, you might remember this. So back in the day, like,
where is this going?
So on our so you guys had cable like way before we did, right? Yeah. So we had terrestrial TV, but our terrestrial TV was only 4 channels: BBC One, BBC Two, STV, which is number 3, and Channel 4. So growing up, that's what you had, those 4 channels. But then one year, Channel 5 came on the air, and it was a big deal. It was a huge deal because you could click another button and you get another channel. Huge. The Channel 5 was basically, I don't want to say filled, but there was a lot of erotic thrillers on it. Shannon Tweed movies, all that kind of stuff. And growing up, I was maybe, 10, 11, growing up at that time. I watched a lot of Channel 5.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was talking with that Scott Murphy, who's from Scotland. We talked about Channel 5 when there's a movie that had Sarah Buxton in it, who was on Sunset Beach, which was on. And when I was in England, I saw all these benches that had advertisements for Sunset Beach on Channel 5.
Sunset Beach, yeah, that came on as well, yeah. Man, it was like the risque kind of thing. I think it was, yeah. Do you remember this, Nico? Do you remember this being a thing?
I remember the likes of things that used to get in Channel 5. I'm a wee bit younger than you, Stephen.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, cable opened my eyes to a lot.
Yeah, cable definitely did. I mean, it had a lot of, Channel 5 had a lot of made-for-TV films from the States that you would just never have got a chance to watch without that. Even things like When a Stranger Calls, like all the kind of old, was it 70s When a Stranger Calls released films like that. So if, like, I was growing up as a major sort of horror fan, still am, and to be able to see those kind of films over here in Scotland was like mind blowing for someone like me.
Yeah, it's funny. It was growing up here in America. That kind of that boom starts like in the '80s, and
Yeah.
I remember we had a friend. My one of my friends, his parents got what they called a descrambler box. So essentially, you've got your cable box, and then you've got your regular cable channels, like the ESPN channel or USA or something, and then like the pay ones like HBO that you'd have to pay for, and then there was a pay-per-view channel where new movies would come out, and you'd call a cable company, and they would send the movie to your cable box. Well, his parents bought this scrambler box from somebody selling it out of the back of a truck or something that had all the channels. And yeah, the number of erotic thrillers that would be on those channels, it was amazing how many, like you said, Shannon Tweed, all of those ones. And I can remember those like late '80s, early '90s, just how many of those were on. It was like this kind of this boom in the market, kind of especially post Fatal Attraction, where they just wanted to make as many of those as possible.
Yeah, man, what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
What a time.
I do love a good erotic thriller, and I think this is the sort of closest that I've got to. But it's certainly a genre I'd like to explore. I think when done tastefully, I think it can be quite an interesting genre to explore.
Yeah, it is. I think it is done quite tastefully in this film.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of credit goes to Barry Gunn, the DOP. It definitely helps when you've worked with crew on quite a few projects over the years. I mean, Barry, I know Barry really well. He's great at what he does, and I trust, me and Nathan both know him, and we both trusted that he would help us look good while we were at it. I mean, a lot of it is, just getting over your sort of insecurities and trusting that people make you look good. Because, I mean, who doesn't want to look good on screen when you're doing a scene like that?
Yeah, and this might be a daft question, but did it get easier the longer it went on? Did it get more?
It was just so silly,
Right, okay.
It was. We were laughing from the beginning.
Were you? Okay.
I mean, so Alistair, the sound guy, funnily enough, he had not read any of the script.
That happens loads with Alistair.
But then, as you can imagine, we got to that pivotal scene, and I'm ordering Nathan's character Kevin around very explicitly, and we were literally doing one take, and Alistair was so taken aback that he just muttered out the words, "For goodness sake." we had to stop.
We should maybe say that Alistair is in his 70s.
Yeah.
So
Alistair.
For goodness sake.
He's such a wee sweetheart, but he was not expecting it to take that turn. So it was, as I say, it was a good laugh, and it helped that I knew Nathan and that I trusted everyone in that room implicitly. But also Nathan was really good. He was really generous in wanting me to feel as comfortable as possible. He let me take as much control over that scene as anyone. After every take, he would let me view playback to make sure I was happy with the sort of angles, and of course Barry would be communicating the whole time what angles he was at and how much you could see. And the thing is, you don't actually see a lot of it is sort of just suggested, but it sort of feels quite explicit.
Yeah,
it feels more explicit than it actually is, I feel.
Yeah, I think you're right actually on that one. Yeah. I can't imagine. Do you know what I see as well? I can't imagine. I don't know of any other Scottish indie films that are kind of pushing the boundaries with stuff like that.
It's such a huge part of the movie. Like, it works, and I guess it's kind of good to know, like, that there were all these, not precautions, but there's a lot of care taken in making the scene. Because, yeah, I think maybe if that's not the case, maybe the scene doesn't work as well, and because it's such a pivotal part in the movie that the fact that it works so well really, a lot of what comes after kind of hinges on it. So I thought it was a really great turning point. So it's kind of cool to hear that there was a lot of care taken in making sure it worked.
Absolutely. I mean, I have very high standards when it comes to working on productions that involve scenes like that. Everyone's got to be on the same page. Yeah. Everyone's got to be respectful, and they've got to just realise how sensitive, filming a scene like that can be with people. Yeah, they handled it with a lot of care and a lot of love. And yeah, the main thing is that everyone was comfortable. We were really good at communicating with everyone, because you've got to also bear in mind, the crew. You can't make sure the crew is comfortable with something like that. But it was really funny because one of the members of the crew had been the first love scene that he was ever had worked on, and he was like, you know what? This has opened my eyes because it's not as sexy as you would be made to think. Like, it was like, this is actually awkward as hell and funny as hell. It was like, I never expected this to just be so fucking weird. So yeah, people, there's no chance of getting carried away doing a scene like that. It's very sort of choreographed. It's very practical, it's like a dance. It's, there's different steps to it, and it's very technical. So yeah, there's absolutely nothing sexy about it. It's great that, you can have that sort of desired effect of it being sexy in the final sort of cut, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it works really well. Like just the actual scene itself, the way it's edited, the way it flows, it really does work.
And the music added so much to it. I mean, Christopher, our composer, worked on it, did a fantastic job of adding those extra moments of tension, and there was like a proper 90s thriller vibe. I think he got quite a lot of inspiration from Basic Instinct for that as well.
I'll need to go back and listen to it with the volume on then. Okay.
Yeah. But,
There was
yeah,
music?
It was...
Okay.
But yeah, I just feel really sorry for Nathan having to not only be in it, but like edit it, and just the trauma of
That must, yeah, I didn't even think of that there actually, because that's something that he's got to sit and edit it, and it's that would be strange.
I just hope he had headphones on when he was, because otherwise his neighbours would be like, "What the hell?"
I know. Jesus.
But yeah, I quite like the idea of having my own sort of Xena on a top from GoldenEye moment. When we were going through that sort of scene, that was an element that I wanted to bring to it, with the crushing of the thighs.
Yep.
Yeah, but the fact that you kind of pull back a little bit is what makes it so great, because then Nathan kind of just thinks, okay, maybe she just got carried away, right? He doesn't think like, oh no, this is the Black Widow who's here, that I have to worry, which I thought was really interesting about how that the scene carries out that way.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose not only do we keep Kevin on edge,
Right.
but we keep the audience on edge that whole time as well.
Yeah, no, I thought that was right. I mean, it's one of those things, talking about those 90s erotic thrillers. I think sometimes, they would use love scenes, but a lot of times it was kind of almost like love scenes were the same as, with the whole cable TV concept of like, somebody might turn in the middle of this. So we need to have love scenes at certain points, or we need, they're almost like the way to keep people watching the movie. Whereas in this movie, I think both the love scene, but also the flashbacks, using that as a storytelling narrative, as opposed to just something that's padding out the runtime. A lot of those techniques and things that when you watch a 90s erotic thriller, they're kind of just sort of like crass elements that are kind of just tossed in, and you're kind of just having a fun time, just, watching it and goofing on those things. That here, they actually come out really well and play a strong part in telling the story.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved doing the flashbacks with Ollie. That was also my first time working with Ollie Bassey, who plays my husband in this, and it was great working with him in those flashback scenes, because we both found it challenging in the sense that both Eddie and Angela, it's like you've got that other element of them playing roles. Like, so it's challenging as an actor, because you're an actor playing this character who's also playing a role. So it's very nuanced, and it's quite tricky to portray that to the camera, because if you get it wrong, if and if people don't watch the whole movie, that can come across as just like ham acting.
Well, because one thing I thought was great about it is there's this stereotype of someone like Ollie, the kind of the big burly Scottish or Irish or whatever, who would be known to be abusive towards his spouse, and kind of all of those sort of things that are wrapped up in there. And this movie takes that stereotype, kind of just the way they're taking a lot of stereotypes and tropes, and turns it on its ear. And I wonder if maybe for Ollie, the fact that he got to do that, and not just be the big guy who just walks into a room and throws somebody over a bar or hits somebody or whatever, just slams a pint of beer down or something, that he got to play this part that people think is one thing that we're all expecting, and then he ends up being something else.
Yeah, I would imagine that would have been really refreshing for him, because the sort of roles he's played before, I believe he's played soldiers and things. He was in this film called Dynamite. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, Matt, you need to check out Dick Dynamite. You've got to check it out.
Okay.
I've not actually seen it myself, but I know that he plays a really important character in that.
Does it?
SS Connell Maximilian. I'm just looking it up now.
Yeah, just look at myself here. Yes.
Yeah, man, I know Robbie, the director, quite well. Dick Dynamite, and he's went all over the world with that. He's went to the States, he's went to Korea, had a show in LA. It is wild, man. It's just a total throwback kind of exploitation film made in Scotland. It is wild, a lot of fun.
I mean, they had people like Irvin Welsh involved in it playing role. It had a huge team. It was nice for another film like that to put Scotland on the map with indie film. Definitely, it's always great to see other people at that level getting their work out there and having such a great response.
Yeah, well, and this is kind of going back to that point about Scottish cinema, where it's like in America the algorithms don't push these movies to us enough. I know. Another movie that Nathan and Tom made, When Darkness Falls, they had the two leads. Essentially, they were playing Americans who were kind of fish out of water in the Scottish Highlands. And I think that was an attempt to maybe make that kind of more sellable here in America. But I look at Death Among the Pines or Dick Dynamite. Another one that I saw that you had made, Nico, Convergence. I haven't seen it yet, but it looks good. And it's I've never heard of Conversion. I've never heard of these movies because in America, I think there's a sense of nobody's going to want to watch something if it takes place in Scotland. They need to, maybe the kilts and bagpipes and the person fish out of water. Or if it's Australia, they've got to have kangaroos and koalas or whatever. And it's Americans won't watch anything. It's America is a very big population. There's if just 1% of us watch it, that's 3 million people that'll watch something. And so I do I think on the one hand it's nice that we can get these things now. It's just a matter of getting the word out on them more, I think.
Yeah, I think that's true for any sort of film, unless you've got a massive team behind you, unless you've got a whole PR plan and the money behind you, it is quite difficult to get the word out. I mean, for Convergence, that's still one of my proudest projects to date. So I'll always shout from the rooftops about that. If you don't mind me plugging it, it's a wee thriller about two people experiencing grief in different ways who... My character, Lily, meets Jeremy Theobald's character at a counselling group. And Martin is his name, and he's lost his wife in a car accident, and they sort of find comfort in each other. And the whole theme of the film is, questioning whether or not we have control over our own lives. And, asks sort of big questions like that and tackles quite difficult themes of loss and grief and but I'm always happy to promote that because that's one of my projects that we won quite a few awards in different festivals throughout the world, and we had our premiere down at British Independent Film Festival down at London in Leicester Square. And yeah, it's just such a shame that it didn't get as much attention as I feel like it really deserved. A lot of love and effort went into that film.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw that. I'm sure I saw it. At
We
Glasgow.
had a wee cinema run. We did have a wee cinema run in Glasgow Cineworld, which is now closed down. But yeah, that's also on streaming. It was Steve Johnson
Yeah,
that filmed it. He wrote it and he directed it. So he then went on to make another thriller called Stalker, which I believe was shown at Fright Fest a few years ago.
yeah, it was. Yeah.
But yeah, Steve's phenomenal, really underrated director. Hope I get the chance to work with him again. And Jeremy Theobald, who plays opposite me. I don't know if you're a Christopher Nolan fan, Matt.
Oh yes, I definitely know his movies for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Jeremy was in Following,
Oh,
Christopher Nolan's first feature film. But again, really, really great talent, really underrated actor who I hope I get to see more of in projects. And yeah, there's just so many people that I know are so incredibly talented and they don't get the level of attention that they really deserve. So always like to try and give shout outs to people that I've enjoyed working with, especially who I want to just shed a wee bit of light on.
yeah, and I think whether it's this movie, Death Among the Pines, or Convergence, or like even like Lock and Load that you did, Stephen, with Nathan. There's nothing about them that I don't know how to explain it, but there's no reason why an action fan shouldn't like Lock and Load, or a person who likes dramas or thrillers shouldn't like Convergence or Death Among the Pines. Like they're definitely there for us to watch. Like I know Nico, you did a Christmas movie, and I could see like the Christmas movie audience in America not wanting, they want to see Americans, even if most of them are Canadians. They still want to, that audience tends to do that. But I think for thrillers, it's or horror movies or action movies, I think wherever that movie's made, I think there's an audience for it, and it's just a matter of the algorithms or however it works. I think there is a sort of the cynical attitude in terms of the film industry in America that like, oh no, people aren't going to want to watch that, and it's like, no, there's enough people that would want to watch it. I think that people should know about it, and hopefully things like Tubi. It's like if you watch one, maybe if they're on Tubi. And I don't think Convergence is on. I think Convergence is on Prime to rent. But Dick Dynamite is on Tubi. Maybe if you watch one, maybe the algorithm will tell you to watch more, and you can kind of explore more movies.
Yeah, I mean, as Stephen is very much aware, I'm sure that if somewhere or someone highlights one project that you're in, they're more likely to see the rest of your work. So this is a great opportunity for both me and Stephen to sort of not only talk about Death Among the Pines, but it's like anyone that's interested in film, whenever you watch a film, it's like, oh, I'll go through this person's back catalogue and see what else they've worked on.
Yeah, we definitely, it's something we need, because I mean, I think, we can touch upon the sort of Scottish film industry and it being, not particularly great, but there are people out there like Nathan and that who are trying to, push as many films as possible. It's very difficult here in Scotland to make a career out of being a filmmaker / actor or anything in that regard. It's very, very difficult. And there's a lot of, I guess, political reasons maybe for it as well, which, maybe now's not the time to go into. But, there's a wave of talent in Scotland. It's amazing the amount of films that Ireland make per year. We don't make a fraction of that. Scottish films. I think it, even studio level as well, or bigger studio levels, it's just not there. Obviously, we get a lot of films coming over from the States, big sort of budget films. The Batman, and I've had World War Z and all that kind of stuff. So there is, this place is, obviously we've got Outlander as well. But Scotland has got the landscape, the people, the architecture, everything is there to make for there to be a bigger film industry in Scotland.
Definitely, there's so much potential.
God, loads.
I just wish that our country would believe in its own talent as much as it believes in other countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, we're probably coming from the perspective of being quite frustrated actors, because we do see, anyone in the film industry, we see so much work getting overlooked and so many opportunities going to the same people. It can be quite a gatekeeping industry. So I always really admire anyone that just manages to get a film made, because there's so many challenges involved in just getting something made, never mind getting out there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Totally, yeah.
it's with the new this kind of this more democratized space with things like Tubi and things like that. But then there's the challenges of getting the movie on Tubi as well. But you hope that you can find more of these things. 'Cause I think that's one of the things too is growing up. That like the video store. You might have. I mean, I remember my friends and I watching Bad Taste, a horror movie that Peter Jackson made, and
Yeah, Jackson, yeah.
right. And we found that in our video store in the 90s, in the high school. And so, Tubi and these other things should kind of do the same thing, hopefully, that, people can find them. But it is like, I think it was kind of the thing when I was, preparing for this podcast, and I was looking over both of your CVs, and I was like, boy, a lot of these movies look really good. And I just, I've never even heard of them. And I'm someone who's, constantly like looking up IMDb bios and looking up movies and stuff like that. And it's like, it kind of frustrated me that like, oh, these are movies that I would want to watch. And there's no algorithm that's pushing them to me at all. If you kind of got to find them yourself, and I guess you need a starting point to find them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, we could even bring up, Matt, have you ever heard of Hex Studios?
No, I don't think so.
No,
Hex,
check them out.
also a British horror studio.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same people. But I was actually going to bring this up as well, Stephen. I think we're thinking along the same sort of lines, but I actually worked with Stephen for the first time this year on another project. So I'll hand it over to you, Stephen.
Thank you. So yeah, we worked together on Slave and the General, which is the sequel to The Slave and the Sorcerer. So Hex Studios operate in Fife, which is the east of Scotland, east of Glasgow, about an hour away. They've got a studio there, Hex Studios / British Horror Studio. They're also, do you remember Amicus Films, Matt?
I don't know if I've heard of that. I'm not sure. Is there any? Have they made any? What movies have they made?
Yeah, so Amicus back in the day were, they were in the 70s. They sort of rivaled Hammer.
Oh, Hammer. Yeah, so I know Hammer for sure.
Yeah.
So Amicus did a lot of kind of portmanteau films. Dr. Terror's House of Horror, The House That Dripped Blood, Tales from the Crypt, From Beyond the Grave. I mean, there's loads of films that they did, but they used actors like Cushion and Christopher Lee and all these phenomenal actors. So Hex, the president of Hex, Laurie Brewster, he managed to basically speak to the Subotsky estate. It's the original, the founder of Amicus, Milton Subotsky. He's deceased now. He's passed away. So as his son Sergei, he spoke to the estate and managed to basically revive Amicus back from the dead. And we did the first Amicus film in 40 plus years, maybe 50 years actually, In the Grip of Terror, and that was just released a few months back. So Hex / British Horror Studio, they've been making films for the last 10 years out of Kirkcaldy. They are backed. They are, because it's a horror studio, physical media is such a huge thing for them. Mm-hmm. That might be why they don't put a lot of their films on places like Amazon Prime and Tubi and things like that, because for them it's their customers prefer physical media. So let's go back to Slave and the General, sequel to The Slave and the Sorcerer. Do you remember the sort of Albert Pune films in the 80s, like Beastmaster and all that kind of stuff, the sword and sorcery films?
Yes, definitely. Albert Pune was the director who wanted me to review his movie, and I said he was like his work was like a car commercial director. So that was actually Albert Pune who I communicated with. Yes, wow. Yeah, it was crazy. He made another movie, and I looked at it and I was like, something was wrong with this, because I was like, it's really low quality for him. And he was like, yeah, what happened was we filmed in Bulgaria and we shipped the crates of film back to America, and we lost a crate of film, and we had to kind of hobble together. Yeah, so those 3 urban movies that he made, he had to sort of cobble together what he could to make those 3 urban movies, because the distributor was like, we need these movies, and he's like, but I'm missing a whole crate of film. But when he saw that, he was like, oh, so you kind of know, you at least you've picked that out, and we kind of went back and forth about different movies. And he was like, can you give my movie Mean Guns another try? That was the one that I said, he's like the director of this was like a car commercial director or something. And I read that line and I was like, I can't believe he even talked to me after I said that line. It was so amazing. Yeah. But unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But yeah, he would come to me about some of his new movies and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned Albert Pyun, because that was a director who kind of showed me like I need to be better about reviewing movies, like kind of more careful with the talent involved.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Well, in that case, you need to check out The Slave and the Sorcerer.
Yes.
Released two years ago. So me and Nico we were on the sequel there. So that just sort of wrapped production maybe like 6 weeks ago.
The Slave and the General. I was actually a huge fan of the Slave and the Sorcerer, which Stephen is in, and I reached out to them, and I knew that they were making another sequel. Another sequel? Well, a sequel. And I was like, I really loved the first movie. Is there any chance that you have any role in mind for me? And they're like, funny you say that, because we were literally just about to contact you about getting involved. It was such a great experience, because it is, an actual studio that they've just transformed into this, like, you've got a dungeon, you've got a tavern, and it's very sort of it's a fantasy movie, so it's heavily inspired by like Beastmaster and Conan the Barbarian. And then there's another one that I watched recently, Deathstalker. Yes. So there's heavy influences from there. So I had a superb time working on it. I played I'm not in it for very long, I'm in a couple of scenes, but I have this like dance sequence in this tavern, and it was just magical being in a fantasy film, because it was the first time that I'd ever worked in a fantasy film.
Was that the first time?
Yeah, I've never worked in a fantasy film before, so it's always been a dream of mine. So it was just finally glad to tick that off the list, and of course get the chance to work with you again, Stephen.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I came in especially to see that because I was off, so I came in to see you.
Oh, aye, did you?
I came in to see you, get a hug off, get a wee hug off you.
I had so much body all on. We got through. Not as much as the lead, Chris.
Yeah. Chris Baggs, the
of the
lead,
movie.
plays the barbarian, and he every take has to get slathered in baby oil because he's a very muscular individual.
Oh yeah, he is a beast. He looks like every sort of 80s hero in those sort of films. He was perfectly cast for that. And he's such a gentle giant. Chris is such a lovely dude. Like everyone working on that project were just so down to earth and very like-minded, very easy to get on with. And the people are just so important when you work in projects like that, especially indie film, because, it can be long days and quite demanding. So, the very least that you want in a project is to be able to get on with everyone and just have a fun time, because that's why we all got into what we're doing, for the love of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's got to be something, right? I mean, I know you're talking about like, whether people watch their movies or not after they're made, but at least maybe the fact that you can say like, okay, we've done this, we've put all this time and work into this role and this production, to have it kind of turn out, in a positive way, to be able to look at it and say like, yeah, okay, even with maybe budgetary restrictions or anything like that, what we were trying to get across came across, that it looks that way. I mean, I imagine that's got to be like an amazing feeling.
Stephen. Sorry, Stephen. I thought you were going to say something.
I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Just it's a joy. It's a joy for any audience to see work that you've worked so hard on, and just have the ability to entertain people. It's always magical whenever you get something released to other countries, especially because your audience isn't always necessarily in the same country. Sometimes you'll get more fans for a project from, America or Australia. It's not always right on your doorstep. And that's something that I always tell, other creatives or filmmakers or actors. It's like, okay, your audience might not be in your own country, but that's okay. There's a big world out there. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah. And it's such a good, I think one of the key things that I always kind of take away from every project is just, for that X amount of time where you're on set, however long you're filming for, it's the sort of, it's the relationships that you're forming. It's one of the reasons. So I used to be a circus performer in the States, and so I used to tour. But one of the things that I missed when I stopped doing it wasn't really I guess it was the sort of show, sort of lifestyle. But I just missed the, crew of people, performers, coaches, etc., all for a week or two, getting a show up and running, having those, you're living together, sleeping together, eating together, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all going into this one goal to have this fantastic show at the end of it. And that was what I really, really missed when I stopped doing that. And that's why I sort of, what else is like that? Let me think. Acting. Oh, filmmaker, film. And that's one of the reasons why I get into it. And that's what I always, when I think back about a particular project or a film that I've made, completed, a little bit is about the film, but it's always those little moments where you're, having a laugh, something.
It's the
wrong.
experience.
It's the experience.
Totally. The experience and the journey of making the film is just arguably as important as the outcome. Because I make stuff for sort of not self-satisfaction. What's the word?
Is it like the sort of pursuit of it, like the sort of
when you feel fulfilled? Yeah, I make stuff for the fulfillment aspect of it. Like I like to make projects that fulfill me as an artist. It's not about how big the audience is. It's not about how fancy a project it is, but how is that going to fulfill me? Am I going to have a good time on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the things that it's interesting because and I know we're starting to get a little late here, so I'll cut but one of the kind of reoccurring shows that I do is we talk about like more modern direct-to-video movies, and we talk about this producer Randall Emmett who gets a bunch of stars in his movies and makes the movies. And watching some documentaries about how he makes his movies, it's really just about kick this thing out as soon as possible, and you've got crew kind of sleeping 4 to a room and kind of like really tight these long schedules, and then maybe you get like a big name actor who's only going to film for that one day, so it's like the crew has to spend 4 hours before, 4 hours after this long day doing all this stuff. And I think you can kind of see it in the end product that the people involved were kind of just doing it because they're professionals, but it wasn't a great experience making the movie, and you can kind of feel it in the movie. And I think like again with something like this, like Death Among the Pines, you can feel that there was a positive experience on set. It kind of comes through in the film as well.
I'm really glad. Yeah, I think that the camera can pick up on a lot of things subconsciously like that. And yeah, how do you feel about that, Stephen?
Yeah, no, definitely. It was both. It was 2 blocks, wasn't it? Both blocks. One was more in the sort of summer, and I think just being in that little kind of location that we were in was just really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, because we've both worked with a lot of the same people and who made this film. Alistair, etc., Barry. So it's like every time you do it, you're getting like a little bit of a family kind of time with people who you don't see too often unless you're making films. It's
Yeah.
just and I think this film, the experience was very kind of reminiscent of that for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was hard at times with the long hours and stuff, but I think when you're working on stuff that you really enjoy with people that you love being around, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like you're playing dress up again as a kid. It feels like play, and that's how I truly believe like when you're an actor, like when you're on set and you're playing a character, it should feel like play. There should be a lot of playfulness involved and just enjoying being in that moment, doing what we love and what we do best.
Yeah, that's sometimes a hard thing to remember. Being an actor is, I know it sounds really obvious. You just said it, as you're playing, and playing should be playful. And I think sometimes actors, I know I can get in my head where you kind of take it too seriously, and it sort of gets in your way a little bit. It can kind of hold you back a little bit, but you're just playing.
And I think it's just about finding that joy and that sort of playfulness you have as a kid when you don't overthink things. It is like finding your inner child again. I think that's what kind of drives a lot of people to the creative industries is, rediscovering that playfulness that you had as a kid. I believe that, growing up is a choice, I want to try and stay a kid as long as possible.
Yep, because reality is not a good place sometimes.
No.
No, I totally agree there. I think it's kind of the same with writing, where it's like you can kind of do the kind of imagination thing again. That as a kid, it was like always accepted to do that, and then you can kind of find these niches or these careers in your cases where you can, I can actually play somebody else. That's my job. I think is always a fantastic thing.
Oh, it's such a privilege, man. Like, I would never have dreamed of doing what I do now. I mean, I would have dreamed, but I mean, I just can't believe that I'm doing what I do now. Like, if you told me as a kid, one day you're actually going to become an actor, I'd be like, what? Say again? As much as I love doing it as a kid, but I just didn't have, especially in my teenage years, I just didn't have the confidence to, put myself out there.
Yeah, Matt, you were saying about, you just mentioned about your writing. Do you have any, what kind of stuff is it you write? Is it?
So I write mostly like literary fiction novels. So like I just put out one recently called Mark and Sales. It's about a guy who is selling health insurance here in America. It's cut rate health insurance, and he does a really great job selling it. But it means that like the people who's having to deal with that, it's hurting their lives or his family doesn't seem as much. And so he's sort of kind of coming to grips with that. So that's kind of what but then I started writing some action stuff just because of my site. Everybody likes action stuff, so I created a character named John Bainbridge. So that it's like a short little action novel. I can't call it a novella. I don't think you can call it action novella. I don't think those two words go together. But yeah, so it's mostly self-published stuff, but it's kind of a fun thing to kind of just be able to sort of craft the story and sort of go through different iterations of it and then sort of have it there on the shelf like that.
Oh, okay. So is it possible for us to read anything from you?
Oh yeah, so it's on Amazon UK. So
cool.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
No,
What was the name of it again? Sorry.
So the newest one is called Mark and Sales, and then
Mark Sales.
And then the one before that was called Nadia and Aiden. That might be an easier one to find because that one comes up a little bit more easily. I mean, my last name's hard to spell, Poirier, because that's the other way you could look it up. It's a Poirier. So it's not an easy spelling. But
how long have you been writing, Matt?
So I mean, I started writing. I mean, probably like the early 2000s. I was taking creative writing because in college I switched majors from engineering to anthropology, and in anthropology they just kind of let you take whatever you wanted for gen ed. So I took creative writing classes, and I actually was going to kind of take that track and not pursue anthropology, but I realized I'd already switched majors once before, so I stuck with anthropology, and afterwards realized like, oh, I really like writing. And then it was like one of those things where I kind of just, I'd crafted this one novel that I still haven't published yet. I'm going to maybe get it out this year. But as I was trying to get that one published kind of more traditionally, I wrote another one called Chad in Accounting and really liked that one. And in 2020, during the pandemic, I was like, it's good enough. It's there's no typos. It's all kind of cleaned and polished the way I wanted to. Why don't I just do it on Amazon KDP, on, CreateSpace or whatever, just self-publish it there. And so now, I've done a novel every year since then. So I've got 6 out plus the action novel. So.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Well done, man. Well done.
Thank you.
Really fast turnaround of the amount of books that you've got out in such a short space of time.
Yeah. So I try to write a rough draft every year and then plan to have that rough draft be published in 3 years. And so then it's like, kind of working on each one, kind of proofreading as I go. So, proofread one novel and then proofread another one kind of, when I've got time and things like that for it.
Is there any possibility about you thinking about turning that one into a screenplay, maybe?
I would love it if somebody wanted to turn it into a screenplay. Yes, it's funny. I did for one of my books, the second one called A Girl and a Gun. I wrote a screenplay in the book because the whole idea is like the character writes a movie called A Girl and a Gun, and he kind of there's a rom-com actor who's trying to become a more serious actor who has him write the movie for her and create the movie, and it kind of takes its toll on him because she's very demanding and very exacting on him. And I was going to I wanted the script to be in the novel, kind of at the end, like you could just read the script, but the formatting didn't work out, so I cut it out, and then I turned it into a chapter of something else that I'm writing. But the thing is that as a screenplay, it doesn't really work the way a screenplay. It's like almost like a screenplay written the way a novelist would write a screenplay. So I don't know if I'd be able to. It's interesting. I looked up things about writing screenplays for that, but I still kind of even using like stage direction, things like that. I'm using it kind of as a novelist would. It would be interesting if somebody wanted to turn one of them into a movie. I would definitely love that.
Awesome.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah.
Well, me and Stephen have first dibs.
We'll get flown over to the States and be in your film.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yes, that would be fantastic. Yeah. I mean, they could be made just as easy. I mean, some of them, they I mean, there's kind of an American bent to them. Some of them specifically take place in like LA or something like that. Because I kind of use like a fictitious movie version of LA when I use it in my books. But some of them, they could take place anywhere. They could, you could adapt them. You could adapt them in Scotland too, as well, instead of having to produce them over here.
Awesome. Maybe you should have a wee chat with Nathan and Tom.
Yeah.
See if they want to. That would be amazing if they want to. Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think which one would be. I mean, the first one I wrote, Chad in Accounting, is a really interesting one because it's this main character who we pick up with him 5 years after he caught the love of his life in bed with his best friend, and so he's kind of just been living this sort of sleepwalking life for 5 years, and then he sort of kind of changes and kind of develops. It's actually the same world that the new one, Mark in Sales, is in. But yeah, so that one kind of lends itself kind of to being, a movie more, I think, but I don't know. Yeah, it's always interesting to think about that.
Awesome.
That's amazing, man. Well done.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, now I realize it's like, boy, it's like almost like midnight, or it's after midnight for you guys, right? You guys must be late your time.
Okay, fine. I'm a night owl.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, excellent. Well, what is there anything else about the movies that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about?
Do you know what? Actually, going back to the prize they used to take.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Have you got it? Have you got it?
Give me a second because I've got this in my notes. Now, I think you're going to bring up the same thing that I'm going to, Stephen.
Right, what is it?
Is it One With Me and You? Right.
Actually, yeah. Actually, I've actually got two, but that is one of them, yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily surprise of any takes being used, but it's something that happened. It's a scene that me and Stephen did in the kitchen. It was one continuous take, and just as we were finishing that scene, one of the batteries for the light died.
Yeah.
So Nathan, our director, Barry, our DOP, and all the crew were all pulling their hair out because we were so close to getting it, and then we had like this technical issue with the light, so that was a bit frustrating.
That was
Yeah, because that was a really good take. But I believe we got it again. We had to do it again, and that's the thing. You're often at the mercy of things like that going right. You know, all these lights and electrics and yeah.
So we can blame James for that. James Phillips.
So carry on, Stephen. That was just my wee.
That was a shame, but it happens. Do you remember when there's when Donnie is up after being in the basement, and you guys are standing in you guys are trying to look for him, and then you sort of walk into the hallway, look around, and then you go back again on yourselves, but he's hiding behind the coat rack.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you were even there.
Yeah, I was like, when I was behind it, I was like, no way they're going to use this, because it's a coat rack. You would see his legs.
Mm-hmm.
But
it feels so obvious, like when you're actually filming it. But
yeah,
actually, when I went to watch the film, I completely forgot you were there.
That's great. That's good. That's good then. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my entry.
It's always funny with things like that, because there's sort of like this suspended belief part of it too, where it's like, as the audience, do you see it almost like if you're watching a stage production or something like that, where you're like, okay, we see this person hiding, but the actors don't, but they want us to know this person is hiding there, so they make it more obvious. Sometimes as the audience, you go, okay, yes, they should see him, but they also want us to see him. I always think about that, because for myself, I look at it that way, but I don't know that everybody does.
Yeah, and I think because that shot was on the sticks, he didn't even go in. He didn't like punch in and Donnie like being behind it and like trying to be still or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's probably a good choice. I probably would have kept it the way he's kept it. So that's probably a smart choice from Nathan for not doing that. But yeah, it's kind of like what you're saying, yeah, Matt.
Yeah, it is always interesting as a person watching it to be like, oh, those were, there's like legitimate choices that are made about what scenes, you get to see. Whereas as the person watching it, you just think like, okay, this is what we're getting, right? This is the whole piece here, that, you don't think of it that way, that there's decisions to be made about this take or that take.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've got to just give a shout out to both Andy Crane and Barry Gunnan that worked on the cinematography on this. I just really loved the look of it, and sometimes it's hard to like imagine the sort of visual aspect of it when you're so sort of stuck. Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to them. I thought that the visual aesthetics and the choices that they made with that just really added to it. They did a great job.
Yeah, that'd be quite difficult as well, because they did different blocks, so to try and match the work that's already been done,
yeah,
would be quite difficult.
So Andy, sorry, Andy did pretty much the killing scenes and outside in the dark, and Barry did the main block, which was around the cottage and things.
That's right, yeah. And in terms of shout outs, by the way, see the song at the end of the film. How good is that song?
Oh, excellent.
It's brilliant.
Mm.
It's a song, there's a guy called, I actually Shazammed it. Feel Alive Again by Peter Hoven. Brilliant song.
That was a great addition.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I definitely love that. I think earlier on they kind of do like a little Easter egg to one of their older movies where the song is called "When Darkness Falls." Right, the radio announcer announces it. Yeah. So I like that the music played a part in it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just as I'm saying that, I just remembered that Alistair, the sound guy, actually is the guy that does that announcement on the radio.
Right, because I was thinking about that when you said that he was like, "Oh dear," like when he was watching the love scene. So it's like if you hear him as the announcer, then you can picture maybe who he is.
For goodness sake. Everyone on set was repeating that line throughout the whole shoot.
Yeah.
It was his little sort of expression that you just always say at anything that was shocking. Whenever anyone said a bad joke. Speaking of bad jokes, it was quite a bad joke that was in that film.
Well, that was another interesting part of the movie, right? Is again, every little bit like that, like the bad joke, right? It's revelatory about who Angela is, and it's kind of funny how those things weave their way into the story.
What was the bad joke again?
Oh, I can't even remember it. I had bloody trouble trying to remember it.
It was something like, was it a lawyer, a priest, and a rabbi? And then so like
are on a sinking ship.
Right, and something like the
oh yes,
right.
It involves children.
Right,
yeah. That's right. Yeah,
quite a dark one.
Have we got time? That's right. Yeah.
But I just thought that was just a great way of showing just how awkward Angela is and just how she has no filter and no sort of idea of what's appropriate, I guess.
But it was another perfect moment too, because then you've got Nathan's character who's kind of sitting there. I think at this point he's drinking whiskey, right? This is after the tea. But again, he's sort of like, yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but I'm still like kind of lusting after Angela. So I'll kind of just sort of take that in stride or whatever. I'll just sort of compartmentalize that and kind of move on.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a good way for her to sort of test boundaries with people, see what she can get away with.
Right. Yeah, and Nathan, of course, not Nathan, but Nathan's character Kevin. He definitely gave her exactly what she was, like, okay, yep, I can do that, so I can get away with that with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, men, such simple creatures we are.
I have to say, you played the sleaze of your character really well, Stephen.
Oh, thank you very much, Sarah. What you're saying. And you played the madness of Angela very, very well too.
Thank you, darling.
That was really great. It is kind of funny, like you think about like Steven's character just kind of coming in and slouching in the couch and sort of taking over the whole space, and then Nathan's character sort of like, I'm not going to let him take over this whole space, and then Angela just goes back in the other room and is like cutting vegetables or like making drinks or whatever, just sort of like letting these two men do whatever they're doing in the other room.
Yeah, she's just so unbothered, and so she's not worried about anything. She's got that sort of psychopathic attitude of she's not easily stressed. She's not worried too much of what they talk about. She's just letting them do their own thing. She'll figure it out.
Yeah, it was perfect. And I think it again, where Donnie's kind of in there sort of looking around while Kevin goes into the kitchen, and Angel's like, "Oh, you haven't gotten rid of him yet?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I guess I should go back in there." And then the confrontation happens between them two. Yeah, it all kind of works out. And again, it's working on this line of, this tension that's kind of building between Angela and Kevin. That and again, going back to the cinematography, where the two characters are having tea or something, and it's just like, a shot of like the tea with the biscuit on the saucer or something like that, just sort of interspersed throughout it, just kind of works really well. And then here comes Donnie in, just sort of slouching on the couch and saying all kinds of things and doing it, again crashing the party between them. It works so well.
Yeah, it does. And I'm looking forward to it finally being, because I know it's only released in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to when it finally gets released over here.
Yeah.
Which I think, I don't know, start of the year maybe?
I think Nathan said the third quarter of the
Did he?
next year. Yeah.
Third quarter? Wow. Okay.
I'm unsure. I need to double check with him.
Okay.
Right, well, yeah. I mean, I guess as we're wrapping up, anything else about the film that we forgot to mention? Anything that we that you wanted to mention that we didn't touch on?
Nothing that I can think of actually. What about you, Stephen?
No, nothing I can think of at the moment. No, I mean, we had plenty of good shots of Donnie. I was just saying, like the shots we've got of the Donnie's makeup when he gets the axe in his head. I've got loads of pictures on my phone of it. Kind of looks like a vagina in my head. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, it is kind of funny how those kind of things work out, right? Like with the way the makeup goes or something like that, like what that ends up looking like at the end. Yeah, it's kind of always kind of funny how, and I imagine what it looks like while it's not being shot.
Yeah, and even like we did the lying down and the sort of moss and things like that. The makeup, actually, I should. Nico who was and Cheryl who worked on the film. The makeup they did for it was absolutely brilliant. And it was a pleasure to actually be, because it was, I guess it was like midnight at this point, so it was kind of, a little bit cold, but to get that shot, with me with the moss and things like that, and the sort of the axe in the head was great. It was quite funny because when I watched that again, the scene where Angela pulls the axe out of the head. I know it sounds pure stupid, but when we filmed that, it was literally just, put it to my head, and as she starts to take it off, just sort of move your head with the axe, which just seems so obvious and so simple, but on the screen there, it looks excellent.
Yeah, it was such a big scene. It's one of those things where they start the movie with a little taste of that scene, and then we don't know how we get there, and how we get there is just so when we get that payoff of how we get there, it's such a big reveal.
Yeah. Nico, I was saying about how my axe wound looked like a vagina in my head.
Oh yeah, I got a photo of that. So between your vagina head and the blood bukkake joke that I made that night, it was, I had another interview the other day, and he was asking about funny things that happened on set, and I'm like, I can't repeat any of this. I was like, I really can, especially without spoilers. But yeah. It's nice to have that pre-spoiler and post-spoiler wall there. That's a really interesting way of doing it, so that you can talk freely about it, but you're giving people the opportunity to come back to it later after they've watched the film if they haven't already.
Yeah, I got that idea from a podcast that I was on called the Lambcast, the Large Ass Movie Blogs podcast. And when they talk about movies like the new Fantastic Four, something like that, I'd be on there and they'd say, okay, the first part we're just going to talk about nothing spoiler related, and then after the spoiler wall. So I mean, it is part of it. Like you have to, like you said, you have to kind of compartmentalize your thoughts and be like, oh, that might give something away. Maybe I'll bring that up after the spoiler roll. But you're right. Like when you get on the other side of it, you can talk. And I think for me, I had Tom on to talk about his movie Cinderella's Revenge, and I just had so many questions. And I realized when we got to the end, he's like, "Are you going to put a spoiler warning up?" Because we talked about the whole movie. And I was like, "That's a good point." Yeah, it's like I'm going to have to warn everybody about spoilers for this. And so, so I was like, okay, this is a better way to do it. Is to sort of like get all those questions that I want to find out about that involve spoilers after the spoiler wall.
Yeah.
That's a cool way of doing it, yeah. Actually, I need to see Cinderella's Revenge. I haven't saw it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to see it in the theater here in the Philadelphia area. It was way out in the suburbs. I had to take like 2 buses. It was like a good like hour and a half to get out there. But it was playing here. I was like, oh, why don't I go see Tom's movie at the theater? So it was really cool.
Hell
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as we're wrapping up, anything that you wanted to plug? Anything like social media or projects or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I would like to mention my socials if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can follow me on Instagram at Nicolette.McKeown, and I also have a Facebook page where I post quite a lot about my projects, both film and so I've got my Instagram and I have a Facebook page where I share quite a bit about my projects as well.
Instagram, I am Stephen Kerr actor _performer. Also, myself and my co-host Gary Hewitt, we run the Horror Cut podcast. So we release episodes every week. We try and do sort of interviews with people from the movies that we review, but we try and get everyone wants an interview with the director or the actors and get the kind of the gossip from those people. We try and reach out and we try and get interviews with people who don't really get asked to get interviewed. Maybe the writer or the lighting guy or sound, just so that we can get a little bit of the stories that maybe haven't been told, because these guys work in these films and they've got a lot of cool stories that they haven't been able to maybe voice. So I've done interviews with like Trey Calloway, wrote I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. The DOP from the Terrifier films, we've interviewed him. Yeah, it's just we're essentially just trying to build our own little kind of horror community. So yeah, follow us at the Horror Cuts podcast. It's on Spotify, Apple, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just actually searched for it on my podcasting, found it, so I'm subscribed now. So
Sweet.
Yes,
Thanks,
definitely
man.
check that out for sure. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. All right, well, thank you both for coming on. This was a ton of fun. I had a lot of great conversation about this movie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank
very
you
much.
so much. It was a pleasure, and yeah, I'm definitely feeling a lot better about doing podcasts in the future.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, it was a good experience for you for sure.
Oh, brilliant! It's just a conversation, really.
Yes.
Really interesting one, and asked some great questions. So yeah, thanks again.
Absolutely. No, thank you both for coming on. This was a ton of fun. And yeah, thank you everybody for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Direct to video,